watching the Porsche Cups. They're so much fun, especially the Australian or the Global Porsche Cup Challenge. It's like they go all over the world doing so many cool tracks, and you're like, oh, this is so fucking sick. That's great. I've hit the go live button. I think qualifying has started. Qualifying has gotten started. I think we're ready to go live, my friend. Same names everywhere you go. It's funny. Give it a few more seconds and then I'll switch over.
Welcome to HSR Motorsport.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the HSR. We are racing at Watkins Glen. My name is Sagar Bakshi. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much for participating in this wonderful event. I am joined by none other than Kieran Mogg. Kieran, how are you feeling tonight?
I am feeling excited for what we're about to witness. How about yourself?
I am super thrilled to be at a not a California, but a USA native track, none other than Watkins Glen, home of some amazing GT3 racing, as well as NASCAR, obviously. It's got historic origins. The first race held in 1948. It was a street race on public roads, making it one of the earliest road racing venues in the United States, featuring the iconic boot.
Yes, absolutely. And we've also got the chicane going into turn 5 as well, which is actually added in 1992 after the crash of J.D. McDuffie in the NASCAR race in 1991. So the track has gone through a lot of different changes between 1948 and the present day. Most notably in the 50s, when there were obviously it changed from the road racing track to the full circuit. Like you say, the first race was held in 1948. The track was actually formed then in 1953, and the track officially opened in 1956. So it's got a long, grand history of racing, like I say, with GTs, with NASCAR, and of course, it held the US Grand Prix for Formula One for 20 years.
That is very true. A lot of good facts, a lot of great history here at Watkins Glen. One of my favorite tracks to go bowling at and collect a few cars along the way. And I believe that's one of the banners here is Let's Go Bowling here at Watkins Glen. Coming down the main straight before you reach turn 1, the big 90-degree corner that starts out the circuit. And it is a fun track that's basically a glorified oval, as you can see on your screen, and high speed corners everywhere you go, and moderate to deep braking zones only when you get into towards the toe and the heel. And after that, it's pretty much flat out and just a quick pump of the brakes around the corners. And without any further delay, let's go check out the standings very quickly, Kieran, before we get to the qualifying session.
Yes, absolutely. So, in the pro class, Matt Jordan currently leads the way on 63 points, followed by Axel Cassidy, Ernest Lindbergs, Adrian Zay, Simone Massey, Craig Hewlett, Adam Dutton, Miles Dixon, obviously last week's winner, Gia Verbrugge, Yanis Mayer, and that is the top 10.
Yeah, absolutely true. And it is a pretty close championship right now. 63 points for the first place, 54 points for second place, then 43, 39, 24, and down to 19. So it's really anybody's game right now for this championship. And boy, is it an exciting one. And we've got 3 different classes in the Pro-Am class. We have Jim Fox in P1 with 67 points, Nick Neville, Marcus Nuttlings, and we got Jean-Philippe Pfeiffer. Then we've got August Janssen, Daryl Kruger, Carl Warburton, David Janos, William Van Lagen, and Jordan Bubbins. And there's your top 10 for the Pro-Am category. And again, it's very close, just 6 points separating P1 and P2. And what do the scorings look like for these drivers? Let's take a quick look at that in scoring positions. 25 points for P1, 18 points for P2, 15 for P3, and 12 points for P4, and then 2 separating it all the way going down the list until you get down to P10. P11 getting nothing. So a lot of points to be gained and a lot of points to be lost for these drivers based on their category standings. And let's switch over to the amateur class.
At the top, we've got Emre Ozduro on 78 points, Alex Jowanskish, Tony Rucroft, Kasper Zawada, Johan Ruben, Knight, Christoph, Gavin Tyler, Andre Osana, and Ray Rucroft. Again, quite a tight championship towards the latter end of the top 10, but at the top there, see Emre Ozduro just pulling out a little bit of a lead with 3 wins so far in 4 races. His drop score is a second place in the second race. So he had first in the first round, first in the third round, and first in the fourth round. What can the other drivers do to catch Emre? Very, very tight championships all the way around, and I think we're in for a fantastic evening of racing.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. And because of the 3 classes, I bet we're going to see battling up, down, left, right, and center of the grid. And boy, am I looking forward to it. I believe the split qualifying is just about to conclude. We've got about 2.5 minutes left for the pro category to go out, and then we'll have the rest of the categories go out. We have a 30-minute qualifying session and a 60-minute race session. That'll basically allow us some time to get to know all of the drivers on the track. Let's get over to the qualifying session and take a look at what the drivers are all up to right now. What times are we seeing up on the board, Kieran?
So, Jowanskish currently on the 1:46.0. But don't forget, obviously, these drivers that are currently out are the AMs. So the AMs start. So we've got 10 minutes of split qualifying. We've got 10 minutes for the AMs, 10 minutes for the Pro-Ams, and then 10 minutes at the end for the Pro drivers. So these times will continue to tumble. And it's always very interesting because they have 10 minutes, but that can dwindle very, very quickly if they go over the track limits. If they make a mistake, their lap time is done. So we see constantly, round after round, we see drivers having to fight their way through the field and try and find up these places. We saw last week the likes of Newslings. Sorry, I do apologise. Let me finish. The likes of Newslings and Matt Jordan having to just fight their way through the field to try and get up to those positions.
100%. And where do you think that the drivers are going to be facing those track limits, Kieran? Where on track do you see it happen the most?
Well, I mean, okay, are you talking about me as a driver, or are we talking about the drivers currently on track? Because there's a definite skill level in between myself and these drivers, but I think the corner that we've just seen them come through, the second last corner, just coming out of the last section of the track, the second last corner, that's quite a popular one to go wide at. The chicane before the outer loop is also quite a popular one to go slightly wide on. But to be honest, I think track limits on Watkins isn't quite as bad as some other tracks, because like I say, it's quite a fast-flowing track, and really, if you're at a point where you're going out of track limits, it's going to be a lot worse than just the times being deleted, I think.
Yeah, 100%. And although it says that there's 11 corners here, we're going to call it 15 because we're going to count the chicane as a couple more corners, the bus stop chicane. But you're absolutely right. Turns 14 and turns 13, 15 and 13, both of them have their own track limits violation, and that's touching the wall. These blue Smurf barriers are what's going to prevent you from going any faster or gaining any time. Coming through the chicane, obviously, you'll have track limits violations there, quite a few of them. And then coming into the second to the last corner and the first corner, you have huge track limits violations because the curbing is so thick and so rough there. But the outer runoff area is so flat, some drivers might be able to get away with using it without breaching track limits. But I think the more cautious drivers are going to stay within those track limits and be a little bit more timid on their throttle application to keep themselves within the white lines between the mayo and the mustard, as Mike Noss would say, and keep themselves driving forward on a valid lap, because with only 10 minutes of qualifying, the drivers are doing about 1:45, let's call it roughly a 2-minute lap. You're basically only going to get 4 cracks at it.
Yes, absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned turn 1 as well. As we were watching this McLaren drive round, I did just think, I forgot to say about turn 1. Turn 1 is a very, very popular one to go off at. And we said about the curbs, I've got actually an interesting random fact for you about that. Did you know that the curbs were partially changed in 2011? Because I'm sure most of us have seen this, Tony Stewart and Lewis Hamilton did a seat swap where obviously Stewart drove the F1 car and Hamilton drove the NASCAR. And before that, they actually changed some of the curbs. Originally, they were all the white curbs, and they changed a load of them to the red and white before obviously the yellow and black curbs we've got at the moment. So there was actually a bit of a curb change sort of 10-15 years ago. But the curbs have evolved quite a lot over the years. There we go, you can see a lovely shot of it there. Thank you very much for showing that. But the curbs have evolved quite a lot, but it still remains a feature of the track where if you get it wrong, if you use the curb in the wrong way, it will drag your car out of the track limits and just delete your lap time. So it's one thing that the driver's got to be extremely careful at, especially coming through the chicane that we're looking at the moment. Take it just a mile an hour too fast and your lap is done, and it can be done so easily.
100%. And like we said, now switching over to the mayo and the mustard track curbs, and you're absolutely right about them sucking you in. And you can see there on the entrance to the chute, or on the exit to the chute, what you're seeing there is the flat curbing just kind of sucking you out of the track tarmac and pulling you into the grass, pulling you into that gravel a little bit. Watkins Glen is very good at punishing drivers for breaching track limits. You're not going to see a lot of gravel traps at a track like this. You're not going to see any deep runoff areas, although you see one here at the heel. That's only for safety margins, of course, but you're not going to see a lot of runoff. This is a prime example here at turn 13. There is a Armco barrier just on the outside of track limits. So if you decide that you want to get on the throttle a little bit sooner rather than later, well, hello to that Armco and goodbye to your aero package. That thing is going to go flying off of your car and leave some debris in the middle of the track for you to have to deal with. And a lot of the other drivers will be happy to see you lose some aero, because coming in through the first 90 right now, it is pretty high speed, and most importantly leads you up into the very flat out section of the S's, as we're about to see here in just a moment, coming up the hill through the S's for Mark Nuttenlings. Hopefully I'm pronouncing these names right, but coming up the hill through the S's, it's pretty much as flat out can be. This long straightaway after the S's is what leads you into the back straight, into the bus stop chicane, and this is where going to be prime passing opportunities if you do not get turn 1 right. If you do not go flat out through the S's, this Bentley might catch you and might go for a late braking opportunity up the inside at the bus stop chicane.
Yes, absolutely. The bus stop chicane is obviously one of the more notable features on the track, and there's various different opinions on it. Really, I'm not a fan of it personally, but that's probably because I can't drive it, so that's my defense. I can't do it very well. That's my defense on it. But I think what really saves it is the fact if you've got the outer loop and then the entry into the boot as well afterwards, that couple of section of corners with, especially one thing we've got to remember as well, is the camber on all these turns. We're looking at it now. The camber on them is quite steep, and so if you get the car into that groove on the inside of the corner, you can really maximize the effect of the camber, the effect of gravity, sucking your car into the road and giving you that extra corner speed. But if you just straight a little bit out, not only is the curb's going to help you drag out, but the gravity will as well. The centrifugal force will just drag your car out towards the outside curb, and that's it. So there's one thing that the drivers really got to be careful of as well, is making sure to use the camber to their advantage. Turn 1, as we're about to see now, is one of the most tricky for that, because it is quite steep on the apex of the corner. But outside of that, it's not actually that steep. So you have to really get into the apex of the corner, and that sounds, a bit like dirt, obviously. But got to remember that coming into turn 1, it's not blind, but you haven't got great visibility of exactly where to put the car, and so you've got to really trust your intuition about car positioning, about track positioning, about where to brake, about where to turn, and where you can maximize your time coming through that corner against your competitors.
Now, when you talk about, getting it to the apex, obviously, big duh there, like you said, but what is happening to the car when you get into that deep camber zone that sucks you in? We saw that Ferrari really have a lot of compression going in towards turn 1. Is that the same thing that we're going to see over and over again through these cambered corners? What's happening to the car as it goes through these cambered corners? And this is a beautiful shot of the toe and a prime example of what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if we're going to talk about how it all works, let's welcome to our science lesson here. So basically, how this works is, imagine you've got a wall of death. And the reason it works is because if you're driving a car around it, the car wants to fall down. The only reason it doesn't fall down is because the speed that you're going. The faster you go, the more it's then compressing the car, like you say, against that wall. Imagine a fighter pilot. When it pulls back on the stick and the plane, dives up into the sky, you're pushed back into your seat. The exact same thing is happening, except in a camber turn. Essentially, as the car enters into the camber, it's compressing more on the suspension, it's compressing more into the road. And this means that there is more weight over the tyres. Now, when we talk about the Porsche 911, obviously, and the way that it's got a lot of rear grip, which means it can sometimes just break traction, because there's not much weight over the front, with the engine being hanging right over the arse end of the car. That's essentially what we're talking about. It's pushing more weight onto each tyre individually, and the more weight on each tyre, which means a better contact patch with the road, and it means you get more grip. See, the Ferrari just getting a little bit sideways through the chicane there. Obviously, there is no camber in that corner. But yeah, essentially how it works is that the car is just compressed more into the road, and with more compression, you get more of a better traction between the tyres at the tarmac, and better traction means more grip.
So more mechanical grip when you're getting the car really thrown into that corner, getting sucked into the asphalt. And like we didn't see there at the bus stop chicane, because the curves are higher than the road surface, almost the opposite effect is happening, to where you're compressing the car into something that's higher than the car. So therefore, you're getting more traction on the opposite wheels, and thus losing a little bit of traction on the inside wheels while trying to turn. And then that Ferrari spun out just a little bit there. Didn't get an entire tank slapper, but getting another one here at the exit of turn 13, a little bit of oversteer there. And It completely makes sense to me. You're getting sucked in like a fighter pilot. The car is getting more mechanical grip at the end of the day, and therefore it can go that much faster through the corner. Makes complete sense to me. Thank you very much for explaining that, Kieran. And let's look at the timing tower right now. We have Derringer with a 144.6, Warburton with a 44.8, 45.1 for Jim Fox, Nuttenlings with a 45.1 as well, just a couple of hundredths separating the two of them. Alex Jurwancic with a 45.3, Nick Novell with a 45.3 as well. Wow, just these times are so close. Another 45.3 for Jean-Philippe Pfeiffer was able to pull that one off. Again, these three drivers between 5th and 7th just separated by 2/100ths of a second right now. We have Emery. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that last name. I apologize. With a 46, and then the rest of the 46 is coming in all the way down to P13, so less than a second separating P8 through P13. And then 47's coming in for Ben Knight, Gross, Christoph. Man, that one was too simple for me. I tried to French it up a little bit. Casper Zawada with a 151.9, and that'll be the end of his qualifying session so far. And you can see the gaps very close from P1 through P7, just 1 second separating them. And then again, that P8 through P13 mark, just 1 second separating all of those drivers. So we're going to see some really great tight pack racing. And one of the things I'm excited about watching as well is how some of the pro-ams are mixed in with some of the AMs right now. So a lot of these guys kind of being out of position in their class. What do you think about that, Kieran?
I was just about to say, actually, yeah, David Janos, currently P8 in the Pro-Am category in the championship. It's currently down in 13th place overall. It currently last on his standings. So he's obviously not finding the time at the moment compared to his competitors. And as we're saying that, we can see the pros are just about to go out. So his time's going to fall even more compared to that pole position provisional position currently held by Derringer. So yeah, we can see David Janos he's got some work to do really in the race a little bit later on. But as all of the pro-ams and the AMs are back in the pit lane, we can see on the track map on the right hand side that all of the pros are out. Number 77, I believe, has just made a bit of a meal of something. Oh no, 80. There's a yellow flag coming out, I believe. But yeah, so there we go. The 80 of the McLaren in a wall. That's didn't need to say more into that. But yeah, so we've got the pros currently out now, and obviously these drivers, we've seen them week in, week out performing impeccably, and I think we've got some of the drivers really to keep watching. So if we look at the standings, I'm looking at them on my other screen, sorry. So we've got Matt Jordan currently in P1, Axel Cassaday in P2, and Ernest Lindbergh's in P3. So these drivers really are the ones that we're going to be watching out for a lot. However, what I will say is Adrian Zay and Simone Massey, ones to look out for, and of course the driver that just dominated last week, Miles Dixon in that Mustang. For whatever reason, last week he just went out the blocks, all cylinders firing, and drove away from the rest of the field. So he's currently down in 8th place in the championship. He had a 16th place finish in the first round. He didn't start the second round. He didn't start the third round, and he had first place in the fourth round. So I don't quite know what to make of that, to be honest. So it'll be interesting to see exactly what he can do in this session, but we are going to find out. I would think so, assuming he is in this session. I'm just looking at the time. I'm sorry, looking at the timing at the moment. Interesting from Simone Massey there. Obviously, we saw Simone had a fantastic race last week until some unfortunate contact in Barcelona. But yeah, I'm just looking at the timing tower. I don't actually see Miles Dixon there. So maybe Miles isn't racing today.
Yeah, maybe Miles taking this one as a drop round this week.
Yeah, I'm not sure. He's missed. Well, he missed round 2. He didn't start round 3. So, he didn't miss round 2. He didn't finish round 2, maybe? It's just got a dash on my timing screen, so I'm not exactly sure what that means. But he didn't start round 3. I can see that much. And he won last week. So, The only time he's finished in the top 15 even, he won the race. So I don't really know what to make of that yet. So you can see obviously the pro drivers are starting to make their lap times now. Yanis Mayer as well, obviously of HSR Motorsport. He was on commentary with me a couple of weeks ago. Currently in 11th place in the 777 McLaren. He had a fantastic race. And we see right at the very top, obviously, Ernest Lindbergh's and Brugge in the Lamborghini and Aston Martin, respectively. Those two very, very fast drivers. My eyes, though, are on Matt Jordan, number 22, Bentley Continental. If we can see him, where is he? He hasn't set a lap time yet, so he's just come out of the pits. So yeah, my eyes are on Matt because he has been performing very, very well so far this year. Last week, for whatever reason, he just couldn't quite keep up pace with the front couple of guys. But with that Bentley, it's got a lot of power. It really excels on wide open circuits, and as we know, Watkins Glen, like I say, is a glorified oval. It is very, very fast, it's very flowing, and so my sort of very simplistic brain is thinking fast, flowing, Bentley, lots of power, this might work okay.
I can't disagree with you at all. This is a fast and flowy circuit with only a few deep compression zones for the cars to have to go through under braking. I do want to give a quick shout out to everybody in chat. Simone Massey's here, Rev Up, Matt Jordan, and who else is out here? We've got a lot of people. Leave Us Racing, Michael, Mikhail Topinka. Hello, everybody in the YouTube chat. Mr. Louise, thank you very much, everybody, for being here. But you're absolutely right. I would be hard-pressed to think that this Bentley will not go well here for Matt Jordan. We've seen a couple of Bentleys out here. We even have a Honda NSX driven by Henbury. That'll be interesting. But Ernest Lindbergh's goes up into P1 driving a Lamborghini. And for Team Raphael in the number 205, his best lap being a 44.030 right now. He's got pole by about 0.3 of a second in front of Derringer. And we've got Brew and P3 with his 44.5. A little bit of time to be gained still, as the drivers have just over 3.5 minutes left to go in this qualifying session. So at this pace, the 69 will get this lap plus one more, and we've got to see what that number 22 car of Matt Jordan will be able to produce in this Bentley, as he just got through his installation lap and is on his first flyer. Let's go on board and see what the driver is dealing with. And this is one of those cars that's a little bit funky. We don't get to view the right side left, we're viewing the left side right, because it is a right-hand drive vehicle. So you will have a little bit of a benefit going into the bus stop chicane, because his car is so much closer, his driver is so much closer. He'll be able to see that barrier that much easier and be able to get his nose in just a little bit tighter than some of the other drivers without breaching the track limits there. And track limits at that chicane being the wall. And we're seeing him now come into the chute, out of the chute, and into the toe. And he's tentatively getting on the throttle right now, is pressing it as hard as he possibly can, pushing up towards the edge of the boot and getting towards the entrance to the heel. Again, using all the track that he has paid for. You can see his left tires are on that white line for certain, downshifting the vehicle into second gear. A little bit of oversteer on exit as he applied the throttle, up into fourth as we get into turn 13, downshifts back into second gear, pushing it hard and fast through turn 13. Now into 14, this is where we might see track limits get breached, just absolutely throwing the car into the corner, facing a little bit of understeer even, and coming into turn 15, another turn where you just have to throw the car in and trust that you'll make it to the edge. And in fourth gear, now into fifth gear, powering to the line. Where does Matt Jordan go? Matt Jordan finds himself in provisional pole position with a 43.767, shows us all how to get it done.
Absolutely. Now, this is why I want to keep an eye on Matt Jordan, because when the car is working and it's in the correct zone on the track, he can deliver. And we've seen him deliver time and time again throughout this season. One thing that I also spotted while we were on board of that lap, and that was a fantastic run through of that, so thank you very much for that. But one thing that I did spot as well is the fact that, don't forget, the Bentley it's a big car, let's face it. It is a gigantic car compared to some of these others, especially the likes of the NSX, and even the Porsche, really, sometimes as well. It is
True.
a gigantic car along with the M4. And so, because of the size of it, because of the weight of it, it's going to be a lot more stable, which on a high-speed track like the Watkins Glen is extremely useful. Ernest Lindbergh's in that sort of light, dainty Lamborghini. We've seen him time and time again as well perform very, very well. And actually, he's just set another quick lap, and he's only 75 thousandths off Matt Jordan's time now.
Wow.
But that Lamborghini, obviously, it's got a lot of power in the back of him, in the back of that car, sorry. Got a lot of power, as we can see. This is the problem with the Lamborghini. It is rear-wheel drive. It's got a lot of power. It's got a lot of power, a lot of weight over the rear, not much over the front. And it's quite tail-happy, especially compared to the Bentley. This Bentley is so big and so wide and so heavy that it just can stick a lot more. It does mean the twisty tracks struggle a little bit more, which is why I think we probably saw him struggle last week at Barcelona, why we saw him do very well at Donington, that's why we saw him do very well at COTA, that's why we saw him struggle, like I say, at Barcelona, and I think that's why we're seeing him do quite well, as we've seen him just set another quickest lap, a 1:43.457, now nearly 4/10 of a second ahead of Ernest Lindbergh's. He is driving away with this so far, 4/10 of a second. Everybody obviously here knows that 4/10 of a second is big, but anybody that's here for the first time in racing, that is a gargantuan distance.
100%. That is a gargantuan lead that he's able to produce over Lindbergh's. But I think the question that I have to ask is, qualifying pace is one thing. Can you maintain that over 60 minutes and be that consistent lap after lap? Will that 4/10 of a second really mean that much over 60 minutes of a race? And can you maintain that, or are you on the limit? We saw Lindbergh's go off track, pushing that Lamborghini through the bus stop chicane. We saw Matt Jordan do the same thing just a moment after that. I imagine that some of these drivers are pushing to the absolute brink. Can they maintain this pace, or will we see a little bit more conservative lap times out of these drivers?
Of course we'll see conservative. I mean, it's not speed that wins the race, it's consistency. You know, speed has only ever won races where there's not much driver skill involved, and I'll let people sort of make assumptions as to what I'm referencing there. But in terms of this sort of thing, these drivers will have been practicing this week. They will know, obviously, the cars and the tracks anyway, because they obviously are keen sim racers, all of them. And they will know where the braking points are, where the steering points are. We see some donuts here from the Ferrari, which is great to see from Manchip. Yeah, they will know where the braking points are, where the steering points are. They will know what to expect from the car, which is why we see them sort of start off with almost a safe lap, essentially, in qualifying. And then just on the next lap, just push a little bit more. The next lap, push a little bit more, which is why we see both Matt Jordan and Lindbergh's get 2 very good laps in and then fumble the third, because they started off with their safe lap and they just pushed it a little bit where they knew, okay, there's a bit of time there and there's a bit of time there, I'll try and push those. On the third lap, they go, right, let's go for it, let's just try. Whereas for the race, they're going to rein it in, they're going to just settle it down, get that consistency that they've already got in their back pocket, pull that out, and see whose consistency is quickest. And that, like you say, is going to be the interesting thing, because does Matt Jordan have 4/10 of a second consistency time over Ernest Lindbergh's? I don't know. We've seen these two battle already, but you can't count out Manchip either, or Massey, or Dutton, or Cassidy, I want to point out as well.
Wow.
Verbrugge in third place as well in the number 6 Aston Martin. We can't count out any of these drivers, because, like you say, one lap pace is one thing. Over a race distance, knows.
Absolutely true. And thank you very much for that insight of letting me know that Matt Jordan and Lindbergh's have already been in the battlefields, battling in the trenches before. I'd love to see it happen again. Hopefully we'll get a glimpse of that for this race and this event. I'm really looking forward to watching this one go down. Right now we have Matt Jordan, Ernest Lindbergh's, Gio Verbrugge, Aaron Manchip, Simone Massey, Adam Dutton, Axel Cassandi, Michael Derringer, Daniel Morris, and we've got Mark Nuttenlings in the top 10 right now. And the grid is finally set. Let's go ahead and do our race rundown.
Absolutely. I just want to quickly point something out. Matt Jordan in the chat has just gone, can't wait to crash at turn 1. So he's already predicting his downfall less than, what is it, 100 meters, 200 meters to the first corner?
Already counting down the minutes and the seconds until we see our first incident. Thank you so much for everybody for being here in chat. Thank you very much for the love and participation that we're going to be able to see here. And thank you very much to the drivers for putting on a wonderful show for us. Really looking forward to watching this all go down. We are going to be facing a full formation lap, so we'll get some time to get some looks at all these liveries that the drivers have. Let's go ahead and get that going, and we'll do our livery rundown here in just a moment. In P1, we have Matt Jordan for HSR Esport Bentley in the number 22 with a 143.457. Ernest Lindbergh's just 0.3 off the pace with the number 205 Lamborghini. Gio is going to be in the number 6, and he's going to be driving the AMR Vantage. Aaron Manchip in the Ferrari number 999. Simone Massey in an AMR Vantage in the number 69. Nice. Adam Dutton in the 812 Spirit Macca. Alex Cassandi in the number 77 in 7th place, aptly put. Michael Deringer in the 8th place, number 44, Wall Racing Car. Daniel Morris in the number 14, 9th place, 1.1 off the pace. Mark Nuttenlings in the 666 Bentley in 10th place. And we got Ioannis Livanos in the number 13. Mark Hennebury in the number 12. He's driving the Honda NSX. Jean-Philippe Pfeiffer in the number 10 in 13th spot. Carl Warbutton in the number 19, 14th place for him. Giannis Mayer from South of Africa in the 777. And we've got Nick Neville, the 888 Porsche. I believe he's the first of the Porsches. Jim Fox in the number 80 from the great UK, and he's driving the Roadkill car. Alex Jurwancic in the number 111. Emery Uzdoru in the number 343. Tony Rucroft in the number 27 Vantage. Craig Alford in the number 40 representing the UK from Manthly EMA. Andrea Losana in the number 1. You're only supposed to use that if you've won. Gavin Tyler, number 28, for representing the UK. Davin Janos in the number 24 Shell Davis team. Knight Motorsport USA for Ben Knight in the 555. Gross Christoph in the number 57. And then we've got Casper Zawada in the number 413, who hasn't gotten rolling yet. And that was a mouthful of mispronounced names. I apologize.
Well, if anybody knows anything about commentary, you always get the names wrong. That's just part and parcel of it. As we both know, we've both done it, and I'm sure we've both made some absolutely horrific attempts at pronouncing some names. We've both done it in this championship. My first week of doing this, I pronounced most of these completely and utterly wrong. I think I've kind of got the hang of it, roughly, he says, crossing his fingers. Yeah, talk to us, really. Okay, so obviously we're on the formation lap at the moment. See there's drivers that are warming their tyres up. We see there's drivers that are also just driving quite straight. We see Aaron Manchip in the 999 Ferrari here, not doing a lot of tyre warming. So what's going through their minds? What is their plan of action, really, on this warm-up lap? What are they doing?
I think they've got quite a bit of time to consider warming up their tires. I think the strategy really here in ACC, at least, is to drag your brakes as long as possible, because the tire model will generate heat through ambient temperature through the brake ducts. So if you can get into these deep braking zones, like you see some of the drivers warping in and out of each other as there's no collisions on the formation lap, you'll see the drivers trying to pump as much heat as they can into their brake pads and then transfer that heat to their tires more than anything. You'll even see some professional drivers, they'll throw their brake balance as far back as 49, 50%, and someone is off into the walls in the background already coming out of the toe trying to do just what I was talking about. And I believe that was a Bentley. I don't know who that was. And the 413 has warped off to the pits. But yeah, trying to generate as much heat as possible into the brake ducts first and foremost is going to be the primary key to getting the tires warmed up on these formation laps. At least that's what I've been told.
Well, you know more than me about this. I think that Bentley, by the way, was Matt Noodling's, I think, in the 666 Bentley. I think he's just about sort of coming back through to regain his spot now. So, yeah, it's... here we go. Yes, thank you very much for that. So, yeah, so I think... Yeah, at this point, obviously, yeah, they're trying to get all the temperatures in the right window. But don't forget, this is just as much a mental as it is a physical exercise. They've got to change their brains from flat-out mode into almost conservation mode. They've got to think about, right, there's cars around me. I don't want to crash out on the first lap like Matt Jordan was saying in the chat. They don't want to crash out on the first lap. They want to give everybody racing room, and they want to get through that first corner. You can't win it on the first corner, but you can sure as hell lose it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the keys of the race, is make sure you don't lose the race due to contacts, and make sure you don't lose the race due to some sort of self-inflicted error, trying to push too hard, as we talked about for the qualifying pace. And green, 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 away we go. And that's a big leap for Lindbergh's, leapfrogging Matt Jordan into T1, who was caught sleeping at the wheel at the entrance of turn 1. It's all neat and tidy for most of the drivers, it looks like. Let's go a little further back. No, we're going to stay on with P1. A little bit of hip check, a little bit of door banging coming up the hill through the S's, and the Bentley finds his way through that big boat, forcing his elbows out through the S's, and Lindbergh falls back just a little bit further, and they're 3 wide coming down the back straight right now into the bus stop chicane. 3 definitely does not go into 1, and the Lamborghini cannot find his way through and into the stationary barrier. That is the self-inflicted error we were talking about, and Simone Massey also collected up in that error, and that is a lot of front end damage already.
Absolutely, and through all of this, Rouge has ended up in second place right behind Matt Jordan. But I think what's quite interesting about that start is you saw obviously Matt Jordan just back out of it into turn 1. Again, like we're saying, self-preservation. But because he then got a better exit than Ernest Lindbergh's, obviously coming through that first corner, that gravity and the camber like we were talking about earlier, Matt Jordan could just get on the power earlier, get right up to the back of the Lamborghini, and like we were saying, that big heavy Bentley was just on an absolute charge coming down that hill behind in the slipstream of that Lamborghini. As we see, Yannis Mehr, that's not good. He's been collected by another McLaren. He nearly collects, was that a Ferrari? Was that? I think it was, yeah. That's not a great start for Yannis Mehr. There's a few incidents obviously to start the race, but that's kind of what we see with this type of racing. The first lap is always a little bit chaotic. It then starts to just settle down as all the drivers get into rhythm, get into the groove and settle into the race, and then towards the end of the race, mayhem ensues once again. But yeah, Matt Jordan in all of this has just pulled out a 6-7 tenths of a second lead over second place. But he did exactly what he needed to do there. Yes, he lost the position at the start, but he got it back exactly how he needed to do it. He used the momentum, he used the pure and utter pace and power of that Bentley to fire past the Lamborghini and get that place and start driving out into the distance. But, as we've seen before, he was able to. Is he going to be able to drive away from second place this time around?
And Manship involved in a big incident. Let's see if we can get a recap of what happened here for the 999. The 999, I believe, coming into the bus stop chicane and just going over the curbs. He looks like he's holding on very well until he gets to the exit and just gets a lot of understeer and goes straight off into the barrier, collecting the tires. And those are far too many tires to be put onto that Ferrari, and he warps back to the pits to end his stint. Let's also take a look back at the accident with the 777 to see what happened to him really quickly. And the 777 coming out of the toe and into the heel, and was just touched in the rump by the 111, and that's what got him parked into the middle of the circuit and then collecting cars left, right, and center as he was just a sitting duck then.
Yeah, he was an unwilling passenger in that. He couldn't do anything. That's a real shame for Yannis, because we've seen Yannis really put up a fight to the big boys. He himself said that he's sort of in between the Pro-Am and the Pro category. He can't quite keep up with the Pros, but he's a little bit faster than the Pro-Ams. And we've seen him really put up a fight, like I say, against the front runners. So it's a shame to see him drop down like that, but knowing Yannis, I think he'll be sort of starting to come through the field. is currently right the way down in 23rd place in that McLaren. So, yeah, we need to keep an eye out on Jan. And to be fair, there's a few drivers we need to keep an eye out on. 22nd is Aaron Manship in that Ferrari. And I'm not sure exactly where Lamborghini from lap 1 went. I can't quite see it on my screen, but I imagine he's right down the very bottom. But yeah, so there's a few drivers we're going to need to keep an eye on and watch how they can start to make their progress through the race. However, one thing I have just spotted is Brooke in 2nd place has closed the gap on Matt Jordan, and if I'm not mistaken, I think he's got the fastest lap as well.
He does have the fastest lap of 44.392, just about a couple of hundredths, 100ths faster than Matt Jordan right now driving that Bentley. But conservation is the key right now. I think Matt Jordan has a little bit of pace to go in his belly. And here we go, looking on the rear wing of Matt Jordan to that 1 second gap back to Verbuge. And there it is right now. You can see the gap slinking backwards and forwards as the Bentley maintains its momentum and speed through turn 14 and through turn 15 as well. I imagine the Bentley will take off like a rocket ship, but know that AMR Vantage actually keeping in touch, about 8/10 back right now. Let's switch over to a battle with Adam Dutton and Daniel Morris, as this one's getting really close towards turn 1. And single file line for all the drivers right now, neatly going through. Let's check out Mark Nuttenlings and how close that Honda NSX of Henneberry is. He's got about a 4/10 gap separating two of them, and another 4/10 gap between Urwanish and Jim Fox right now. We've got battles left, right, and center on this track. A couple of pit stops already coming out for the drivers. Zawada already taking his pits, Giannis Mayer, Aaron Manship, and we've got Craig Alford, Simone Massey, and Limburgs also taking their first pit stop of the race, and their only mandatory pit stop of the race so far, and getting to the end of this 50-minute stint on old tires will be something to be a watchful eye for.
Absolutely. We saw, I think it was no, it wasn't Newslings. I can't remember. Oh, it was Ernest Limburgs last week at Barcelona. He did an incredibly early stop in that Lamborghini, and granted, he came out right at the front of the field towards the end of the race, but his tyres were completely shot. And so it's a real sort of situation you have to think about, weigh it up. Those drivers that have had a bit of an incident on the first lap, you got to lose. You may as well just try it and see what happens. And so for the likes of Giannis Mayer, it definitely makes sense. For the drivers that are currently up at the front, it wouldn't make sense, because you've got to remember, catching up is one thing, as Greg Murray Walker said, catching up is one thing, but getting past is quite another. And so, especially when you've got drivers of the calibre that we're racing with today, these drivers are extremely quick. They might not be professionals, but they could keep up with a fair few of them. As we see Daniel Morris drop down into 4th place in the BMW, as Dutton in the McLaren takes 3rd place and up onto the podium spots. The BMW there just dropping a couple of wheels out over that curb of the track limits. And this is what we're saying. The likes of the Bentley and the BMW, they're big, heavy cars, and once you get onto that curb, it can just drag you out. But he's back in the slipstream now of the McLaren, down towards the chicane. He looks to the right hand side, but no, he ducks back inside behind the McLaren at the moment. He just thinks a little bit better of it, and then goes a little bit too deep into the entry of the chicane as well, which allows Dutton a little bit of breathing room and just drives away out through the outer loop away from that BMW of Morris. And I'd say Derringer is he's not too far behind either. And don't forget, Derringer, he's not in the Pro category, he is in the Pro-Am category. And what I've also spotted is we have all 3 categories currently racing in the top 10. Derringer is leading his class in the Pro-Ams in that Lamborghini in 5th place. We've also got Iwancic in the McLaren, the 111, in 9th place as well. So we've got all 3 leaders of each category in the top 10, and that is absolutely fantastic to see. Here we go. We've got the 44 of Michael Derringer in that Lamborghini in 5th place at the moment. He can see that BMW just up ahead of him. He's only 1.3 seconds behind. So be interesting to see if he can actually keep pace with these guys, because these are the best of the Pro category. So as we see, Daniel Morris has just got back up onto the back of that McLaren now. So I think that BMW has a little bit more straight line speed than the McLaren. Down the start-finish straight, do apologise there, into turn 1. Don't forget, this is where Matt Jordan made that amazing launch out of turn 1. and it looks like, yeah, he just drops a wheel again over. So is he struggling to get that car stopped? I think so. It's a big, heavy car, especially compared to the McLaren. He is going to struggle to get it stopped. So if he's going to make the move anywhere, it's going to have to be using the power and sheer grunt of that BMW.
Absolutely. It's definitely going to be a momentum car, and trying to find the momentum coming up the hill and into the inner loop is going to be a challenge if he keeps on getting turn 1 wrong, but yeeting it through the bus stop chicane, carrying that number 14 behind the Sprite car. And that McLaren isn't nearly as big, so it's a bit more nimble and more vigorous than the BMW. The BMW is driving a 4.4 liter V8 with great top speed and stability, while the McLaren's pushing a 4 liter V8 twin turbo and 720 horsepower, but it's got that agility and aerodynamics that it's going to carry its speed through the corners with, and it will top out at around, I can't remember the top speed, 260, I want to say 160 kilometers per hour, if I'm not mistaken. I could be very well mistaken, I apologize. But its top speed will be limited here at Watkins Glen. We are using the LFM BOP, so that's something to drive home as well, is that the LFM BOP is limiting the number of car choices. That's why we don't see any Lexuses or Lexi on the circuit, is because that thing has been bopped to all hell and back, unfortunately. Being my favorite car, we're going to see this BMW drag it to T1, taking a look towards the inside line, just trying to scare Adam Dunn into a late braking move, but no, carrying the momentum on the racing line now is that number 14, dipping those wheels off the edge of turn 1 again, trying to get the run up the hill. The gap is now half a second back. It's closer than it has been in a while now, and carrying that momentum and speed. He's gaining right now, 0.4 of a second. But if you want to make a move at the entrance to the bus stop chicane, you better sure up and be alongside the vehicle that you're trying to pass. Otherwise, you're just asking for all hell to break out. And that BMW gets it wrong, getting it all wrong at the exit of the bus stop chicane. Almost lost it like we saw the Ferrari do just a couple of corners earlier, doing the same thing, touching the grass on the exit and then losing it to understeer on the outside edge of the corner and collecting a couple of extra tires for the bonnet of the vehicle.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, he's struggling to get that car stopped a little bit. And this is what we talked about at the start of the race as well. Don't forget, you know, we were saying about they might have the pace, and clearly, I think at the moment, Morris has the pace over Dutton, but Dutton just has that consistency. He knows where to brake, he knows where to turn. We see here Jim Fox and the McLaren just chasing down the Bentley of Matt Newtlings in the 666 there. Well, I just quickly wanted to mention, though, into turn 1 there, Morris, he took quite a shallow line, whereas Dutton took a much wider line. Now, I'm trying to remember in reference to the other cars whether Morris took a shallower than normal line or Dutton took a wider than normal line. But whatever it was, Morris took a little bit too speed into that inside and just helped him run wide, and that allowed obviously Dutton to get that better exit with that wider entry down here. So we'll see coming into the turn 1 now. I'll give you that answer now as we see Jim Fox just behind the Bentley there. And yeah, so I think it's actually a slightly bit of both. I think Morris took a slightly shallower line and Dutton took a slightly wider line than is optimal normally. We see there that obviously both of these drivers have just taken the optimal line. And it worked for Dutton, it didn't work for Morris. But yeah, so if you're Jim Fox at the moment and you've got that extremely powerful Bentley right in front of you, you know down the straight you're not going to be able to make that much of a difference. We see him slightly cutting over the curb of the chicane there, but coming round the out loop and onto the entrance of the boot now. What can he do? He's a little bit closer now, so this is where we're seeing really the benefits of the McLaren come in and hone in. We see going into the camber there of the chute, and we're going towards the toe now, and he's just looking left and right. Where can he make? You see, look on the brakes as well. That heavy Bentley in front of him just can't slow down or stop as well as the McLaren, and that is really where he's got the advantage. That light, little, low-down car compared to that gigantic Bentley, that is where he needs to make the move. He needs to make the move around the boot section, because once you get out of the boot, the corners start to widen up again, and the Bentley starts to drive away, which is why we see him coming onto the pit straight. He's close. Once we get back to the boot, they're not so close again. And this is really, it's kind of cat and mouse of these two cars. Each car has their advantages and each car has their disadvantages. The McLaren, like we say, is more agile, it's more nimble. We see here, exactly, they're quite close, but we see the Bentley just start to pull away again. We can see it visually, that he just can't quite close up to the Bentley as well as the other cars.
But catches him in the braking zone for sure.
Yeah, braking there. But then look at the acceleration out of it. That Bentley has just got the legs on the straight, and this is the issue that he's going to have to face. So to get past that Bentley, he is going to think, well, he's going to have to think, I should say, incredibly creatively.
Yeah, it's going to be a challenge for sure. This McLaren is trying to keep up on the exits of the corners and running wide quite a few times, but that's not going to be it. Quick update, Limburgs has dropped out of the race. He was involved in an incident at the outer loop, it looked like, at turn 9, and then warped back to the pits, and I think that was the end of his stint for sure. Calling this one a total loss is a bit of a shame, as I believe he had the pace to catch back up through the field eventually. But that's the quick update that I had from the pit wall. Jim Fox chasing down Nuttenlings here in the braking zone again at the toe, and we'll see if this McLaren decides to get on throttle a little bit too early and run wide. Not this time around. Jim Fox is keeping a close eye on the rear wing of this Bentley right now.
Yes, absolutely. We've got Mikhail Tompika see the Bentley just go a little bit wide there. Mikhail Tompika in the chat is saying the McLaren should have the advantage in the second and third sector, and that is correct. That is exactly what we're talking about. A real agility kind of based section of the track where the McLaren is arguably stronger than the Bentley. But we see Newtlings there just taking advantage. We see Nick Neville there in the Porsche. Yeah, what happened there? Have we got a replay? Could we scroll back and see what happened?
Let's see if we can find a replay of what happened to the 343. I'm not seeing anything up on the timing tower come up yet for that 343, nor for the 888. Just a brief yellow flag at the 13:18 mark. That couldn't have been it. This 343 had some sort of incident and allows Nick Neville to go through that 888, and we got Casper Zawanda also having a brief yellow flag at turn 13, and nothing to write home about just yet. The 413 is back on track and doing the best he can right now. Let's switch it back over to David Llanos and Ben Knight's fight, but this is seemingly all said and done. Nice peaceful battle between a Ferrari and a McLaren out in front.
Yeah, I've also just spotted that Gio Verbrugge is now 0.3 of a second behind Matt Jordan, so I'm wondering if Jordan's made a mistake currently in the lead of this race. Here we go. Yeah, so it must have gone wide because only a couple of corners ago he was 0.7 back, and he was already starting to make a bit of a dent in. So has he just convinced Matt Jordan the presence of that Aston Martin has just made a mistake? Maybe. Now, this is the issue we're going to find. We're currently coming onto the start-finish rate. Exactly what we're seeing with the McLaren and the Bentley. That Bentley has the legs on the straight. You can see it there. It just gets that better traction out of the corner. Let's see what Verbrugge can do into the braking zone. He's not quite as confident as the McLaren was. See Matt Jordan there using all of the curve, absolutely maximising the run out of turn 1 that he possibly can do. He has just managed to pull a little bit away from the Aston Martin of Verbrugge. Currently 0.4 of a second now, the gap, so he's gained a 10th. But on the back straight now, coming into the chicane section, it looks like Verbrugge is just starting to make a little bit of an indent. Here we go. Yes, so the gap has increased, or it did increase, I should say, to half a second. But Verbrugge is clearly, visibly close back of that Bentley as we're entering into the boot section now. Matt Jordan just goes a little bit wide on the entry there, and you can see on the braking there, Verbrugge has the best line, so he can just use that advantage a little bit more. Matt Jordan in the Bentley, where it's a little bit earlier, means he can get on the throttle sooner and get out of that corner, pulling away ever so slightly from that Aston Martin. You see them just taking slightly different lines. Verbrugge is trying to take a bit of a late exit, I should say. Jordan trying to take an early exit and get on the throttle. So we can see this exactly really a prime example of defensive and attacking driving from both the drivers, and they're putting a fantastic show for us. Now, Matt Jordan has just started to pull away once again, so I think Matt probably has the pace over Gio, but so far from what I've seen, Gio has not made a mistake. Matt Jordan, so far, hasn't conceded the place other than at the very start. But that's not to say he won't. Coming onto the start-finish straight once again now, you can see that Matt Jordan is just getting to the inside of that corner, whereas he's just letting the car run around the outside. He's not too bothered about that apex. He's just trying to get a nice clean exit. Matt Jordan is now 7 tenths ahead once again. They both take a very similar line through there, both taking the absolute maximum of the track limits out of turn 1 as well, coming through the S's. Verbrugge's a little bit further back now. Yeah, I think Matt Jordan just has the legs, but Verbrugge, I think he's got the consistency, so who knows what can happen.
Last lap around, Matt Jordan pulls out a 44.7. Verbrugge comes out with a 45 flat, basically. So 0.3 gain for Matt Jordan there. Let's switch over to David Llanos chasing down Ben Knight as the gap has come down to around 0.3 of a second and staying pretty tight between the two of them over lap after lap. The McLaren versus Ferrari battle, the Shell Oil for Dave's team, chasing down Ben Knight out in front. The battle for 16th and 15th, or excuse me, 14th and 15th. And of course, these drivers are not battling for position overall, but Zawada lurking around in the background in that 413 wants to get past the Pro-Am driver of Llanos so he can gain some championship points and find himself into a top 3 spot potentially before the pit stop cycle even takes place.
Yeah, absolutely. Because he obviously, I think the Ferrari's just dropped a little bit away from Knight now in the McLaren, as Zawada right behind in that McLaren. Yeah, he's
finding his way through the S's.
Yeah, I think if I'm correct, Zawada is in the Am category, whereas Llanos, currently dropped down now into 16th, is in the Pro-Am category. So am I right? I think I'm right in saying that. Yeah, I'm right in saying that. Yeah, so theoretically, Llanos should be in front of some of these. So I'm wondering if he has an issue, maybe. Although we did see in qualifying, he was struggling. So maybe this car, this track, this combination, whatever, it just doesn't suit his driving style. He just can't quite find the pace.
A little bit of front aero damage. You can see that Shell logo bouncing up in the front of that vehicle. A little bit of damage there suffered from Llanos. That might be hurting his lap times. He's only able to produce 49.6 as compared to the 47. A little touch there, I believe, into Kasper Zawada. And that will send him round. Let's see if we can get another look at this one from a helicam this time around. Zawada with a little bit of a tank slapper coming out of the toe, and now coming into the heel, I can only presume is where the incident happens. And the 413 checks up, and the 224 just misses his brake marker by a mile and slams right into that 413. And if worse goes for wear for that 413, starting from the pit lane.
Yeah, that's not great. That's not great at all. One thing I have spotted is Simone Massey and Roman Chip, currently in 19th and 20th place, are starting to make some indent in this race. They're starting to come through the field. But we've got Jim Fox currently on the back still of this Bentley. He must be fed up of looking at the flying wings of the Big B there on the back of that gigantic car. He wants to get past this, and it's the Brit versus Brit battle at the moment, Bentley versus McLaren. You don't normally see, well, you wouldn't kind of think in a technical sense that these two would be on track close together because of the big difference, but this balance of performance, the BOP as we refer to it, is working its wonders at the moment. And we can see here, yeah, that Bentley just drives away on the straight and the McLaren can't quite keep up. But as we see into turn 1 here, he usually has better brakes, and yeah, once again he just closes incredibly close on the back of that Bentley. He's closer now, I'd say, than he has been all race so far. So could he make a move perhaps into the chicane so that Bentley is just getting the legs? But Jim Fox in the McLaren is just widening out the corners as much as he possibly can, trying to take as much momentum as he can to try and keep on the back of that Bentley. Here we go towards the back, the chicane on the back straight now. Does he make a move? No, he doesn't. He's trying to force the Bentley into a mistake. He takes a much tighter line through the chicane at the moment, and the Bentley just taking a little bit of a wide line. Yeah, they're changing lines almost at the moment. And this is exactly what we're seeing. Starting to attack a little bit more. He's looking for a way around. He's positioned the car slightly differently. You can see clearly that Noodling's in the Bentley is going defensive into the entry to the boot there. Here we go now, down towards the toe. I think he's a little bit too far back to make a move, but Noodling still goes a little bit on the defensive side, so Jim Fox gets right to the back of him once again, but he just, he bleeds off a little bit too much some of the grip and runs out a little bit wider, which allows Noodling's a little bit of breathing room just to grow gap a little bit more. It's that real cat and mouse between these two.
Now, what do you feel about an undercut strategy? Jim Fox seemingly having the pace behind Mark Nuttenlings and that Bentley. And I think that if Jim Fox were to pit now or this next lap around, he could potentially pull off an undercut on the opponent in front of him, Mark Nuttenlings and the Bentley, to potentially get around this traffic without having to actually contend with it. And if he does have the true pace, he could even contend with someone out in front like Derringer, potentially, who has not taken his pit stop yet and closing down here at turn 1 on almost touching there, and they may have touched Jim Fox, getting a big tank slapper on exit, trying to course correct that vehicle. It's the commentator's curse of death. The number 80 falls back substantially behind the 666 out in front, and now we've got Mark Henbury, who's been able to catch back up, and again, that's a pro vehicle catching up to the Pro-Ams.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, we've got Henbury in the Honda NSX just coming through the gap. What have you just spotted?
That was close. That was a tank slapper for that McLaren coming over the curbs, overheated tires, still bequeathing that Jim Fox McLaren. And he is struggling right now. Now is the time where I would decide to take a pit stop. You've been pushing those tires. You're working your way through the graining phase. Now you've gone to full graining, of course, after being stuck behind that Bentley in the dirty, in the hot air, behind that big old beast boat machine. Now is the time to come in for a pit stop cycle. Get some clean air and just drive your own race, Jim Fox. That's my advice to you.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I have just spotted talking about inter-category battles is between 4th and 5th, Livianos is currently now 7/10 behind Derringer in that BMW and the Lamborghini in 4th and 5th position. So I can only imagine that Livianos is going to be wanting to take that position off Derringer as quickly as possible. There's quite a big gap then to Dutton in the McLaren in 3rd place. So I'm only a second behind, so I'm looking at the wrong distance there. It's only a second behind Dutton in the McLaren, so he needs to try and remove that Lamborghini in between him and Dutton as quickly as possible. He's still 7-8 tenths behind though. It's not going to be that easy. There we go. There is the 3. So we've got 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So he can see a podium position right there in front of him. And he's actually just dropped back a little bit. Derringer has closed, actually. So Derringer is performing extremely well at the moment. He's completely and utterly out of his class position. He is, 10, 12 seconds ahead of his next nearest rival, Matt Noodlings, in that Bentley, who was obviously having that battle with Jim Fox in the McLaren as well. Yeah. So he is completely outperforming his class at the moment, and he's doing very, very well. There we go. Livianos has just taken a massive chunk of time. I think Derringer may have made a little bit of a mistake in one of those corners we hadn't seen there. But yeah, so 6/10 of a second now between 4th and 5th position. So I think we should be keeping an eye on this. One thing that I'm also keeping an eye on as well, as much as I can do, is Verbrugge currently in 2nd place. Obviously, we had a bit of a chat with, sorry, not a chat with them. We had a chat about them at the start of the race. But Verbrugge has now come into the pits. So we're talking about the undercut.
Oh,
here we go. Oh, he nearly misses the pits there. We get both these drivers coming into the pits, and I believe it was that Livianos that stayed
all 3 of
out.
them, Dutton, Derringer, and Livianos, all coming into the pits right at the same time.
Yes, Morris stayed out. That's the one I was looking at. Yeah, Morris carried on. So yeah, so this is interesting tactic from Verbrugge. He wants to undercut Matt Jordan in that Bentley. He's keeping pace with him. We've got people in the chat. Mikhail Tompinka, obviously one of our regular chatters. Thank you very much, Mikhail. Saying Verbrugge is a beast in this race. I think that is correct. He is doing incredibly well. He is incredibly consistent at the moment. But I've just seen as well, Mike Nouse has joined the chat. The Eagle has landed. So hello, Mike. He was on a flight, which is why he couldn't join us today. So it's great to have him in the chat, and hopefully he'll be enjoying it almost as much as if he's talking about it, which I don't imagine he probably will be, because he is a bit of a chatter, as we both know. But yes, so here we go. So Levianos is still behind that Lamborghini, but the interesting thing for me is, where is Verbrugge going to come out compared to Jordan? That is the big thing. And is Jordan now going to have seen Verbrugge pit and go, I need to pit now? Or is it a case of, he's pitted before me, do I now just try and extend my gap a little bit more? Yes, I'm probably going to lose track position, but I'm going to have fresher tyres towards the end of the race. Does he want fresh tyres or track position? Ideally ideally both, obviously. But what would you do if you were Matt Jordan in this situation? Would you pit or would you stay?
Well, Matt Jordan has decided to pit to prevent that undercut strategy from working out too well. He had just a 1 second gap, so he's got to get this one timed perfectly right to stay in front of his opponent. But Jim Fox is the one that I'm going to keep my eye on, because he has decided to stay out for a little bit longer than most right now, trying to get that momentum back to the number 666 of Martin Uttenlings. And now Jim Fox has decided to come in also, splitting this race directly in half. So Jim Fox closed down the gap on that 666 down to 1.8 seconds, but here comes Matt Jordan stationary for just about 33 seconds at this point in time. Where is he going to roll out onto the circuit? Only time will tell. There's Jim Fox rolling in the background to his pit stop. And then up on the jacks, or down on the jacks, goes for Matt Jordan. And a little bit of a stall there, trying to get the car rolled out. I don't think that he pressed the start button in the sheer nick of time, and he might have lost out just a little bit of time. And Gio Verbrugge, where is he coming through? Verbrugge is coming through T1 right now. Where is the big bad Bentley? He is right out in front. The number 22 still maintains the gap, actually gained some time through the pit stop cycle of 3.1 second gap now from Verbrugge to Matt Jordan. The undercut strategy not working out to his advantage. 33.4 transient time here at Watkins Glen, 32.7 stationary for Matt Jordan, 33.9 for Verbrugge. May have had some damage that he wanted to get repaired. It took a little bit more than a splash and dash.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that I do want to be kind of keep an eye on, though, is don't forget that although Verbrugge did drop a little bit of time, he was warming up his tyres, which is exactly what Matt Jordan's going to be doing right now. Now Verbrugge has the warmer tyres. Will he be able to gain a little bit of time once again? So he's 2.6 seconds behind Matt Jordan. So Matt did an incredible job there of just extending that gap as much as he possibly could before pitting. I think pitting was definitely the right call. But we'll be interested to see at the end of this lap, which we're sort of coming out of the boot now, so coming into the heel of the boot, and then we've got just a couple of corners before the end of the lap. Can Verbrugge continue to close that gap, or is that going to extend? So that's one thing I want to be keeping an eye on. Got Livianos currently in the BMW that we're looking at the moment, on the back of Derringer of the 44 Lamborghini, which we're following just beforehand. I know you're very keen on this battle, which I think is, rightly so. It's a very, very good battle, but I'm very impressed with Derringer this race. He is racing completely outside of his class, and I think we should probably say to some of these, probably say to Craig, should he be in that category, or should he be in the pro category?
Yeah, probably will get bumped up, if not before the end of the season, definitely next season for sure. Here's Livianos chasing down Derringer. Now, like you said earlier, trying to get this position done and dusted so he can chase down for the podium spot there. And now Verbrugge holding on to that podium position, but we know that there's going to be another car taking that spot here shortly once the pit stop cycle has completed itself. Jim Fox, quick update for him, came out of the pit stops 1.5, 1.6 back from Mark Henneberry. So the number 80 now battling it out with a pro position category, and Nuttenlings has decided to stay out, so we'll have to keep an eye on how this undercut strategy ends up working for Jim Fox. No, Jim Fox getting it wrong at the S's and is stationary right now. Let's see if we can get a yellow flag confirmation to see what happened to Jim Fox. Oh no, we're not going to get away from this battle. There goes a look up the inside at the chute. Doesn't really want to go for it. The 44 chops the nose off, says, "Excuse me, sir, I'm trying to exist here in my own race. Please leave me alone."
Yeah, absolutely. He wants to get past that Lamborghini. He does not want the sight of that bull in his face anymore. He would prefer to have that nice clear track, and who can blame him? He has been right on the back of Derringer so far for however long we've been talking about them. See, that's a smart move there from the was that Yanis? I couldn't quite tell.
That was the
It's like one of the
413
McLarens. Yes, so yeah, the Zawada obviously just moving out of the way, sensible as this battle comes through towards the end of the lap. And yeah, I think there, really, Livianos, I don't think he was trying to make a move. I think he was trying to scare Derringer, trying to say, "I'm here, move out of my way, please." I think that was a bit, there's probably a please in there, but I don't think it's going to be giving him many more manners, I think, for the remainder of this race. He's got 25 minutes, so as the race goes on longer, he's going to be giving him less and less and less chances to get out of his way.
That was a very strong worded please, if I've ever seen one. Polite as ever. Here goes Jim Fox now chasing down Warburton in the number 19. They are battling for a position now, as that number 80 did have a problem coming up through the S's, and this is really going to challenge Jim Fox as he's really trying to find a podium position in his class, and finding it, I don't think so, as Nuttenlings is holding on to P1 right now, and we've got Derringer in P2, Warburton in P3, and Fox just outside that podium. We're chasing down an Aston Martin Vantage that seemingly has a lot of rear end damage to it. That thing looks like it's seen more combat than a B-52 bomber during World War II. What do you think?
I mean, if it was me, I'd be more talking about the Flying Fortress, obviously, but that's two different conversations entirely. Yeah, I think he's been in the battle, he's been in the wars so far this race, but I think so far quite a few drivers have been in the wars. It's been a very action-packed race already, and we're only just past halfway. He's just looking up the inside there on the entrance to the boot, but not quite. He can't quite make it stick. He can't quite get that track position. And as we saw with Livianos and Derringer before, he has to just sit behind and wait. But I think quite clearly, Jim Fox is quicker than Warburton in front of him. So I can only imagine it's a matter of time before he gets past. I'm reckoning possibly into turn one. On the brakes, down into that camber turn one, that's possibly there. Or I could be wrong, because he's very, very close now. He might just kind of go, I don't want to wait that long, but move out of my way. So he's taking a slightly wider line to get a later apex there, but he just gets a little bit of oversteer on the exit, just trying to get on the power a little bit too soon. And yes, he doesn't quite make the gap there that he wants to. But here we go, on to the last straight now. See, what he does, very, very clever, tries to go for that later apex, but fair play to Warburton in front of him. He just sends it into that corner, just trying to carry as much speed as he can to defend his position, and in doing so, he's gone wide at turn one, and there goes Jim Fox. He didn't need to wait long for that. There we go. He made Warburton just make that mistake. He was like, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. Now you're not there. I will take that place. Thank you very much. So that's one of the places. However, I've just spotted Livianos is now 0.1 of a second behind Derringer. There we go. Back on this battle that we've been watching for a couple of laps now. They are nose and tail. So they're coming through. Where are we coming through at the moment? I'm trying to work this out. Is this back straight?
This is
back
the
straight,
boot and into the heel right now.
Yes, thank you very much. I can't quite tell where it is an overhead shot sometimes. But yes, so this is really the point where I'd argue Derringer is going to be slightly stronger with the agility of the Lamborghini. And you can see there the exit there that Lamborghini got over the BMW is so much stronger. But coming onto the start-finish straight, as we're about to do, I won't be surprised if we see Livianos get right up close behind him. So 0.2 of a second between these two drivers. Can he make a dive into that first corner? He's closing, he's closing, he's closing, he's not close enough, and no, he sticks behind the Lamborghini. He just takes a slightly wide line, actually, carries a little bit more speed through, and that's an interesting line in terms of track limits there, but never mind. Through the S's we go, and we can see that Derringer has just got that better exit. He just gets that run through the S's, and he's pulled that gap slightly away from Livianos. So, coming down towards the chicane, can Livianos do anything at all? Depends really how they take these curves. We've been seeing drivers all day long completely fumbling it in some circumstances, but we see that Livianos is so much more stable. That weight of the car, the weight of the BMW, helping him just keep that balance of the car over those curves, and he is right back on the back of that Lamborghini. Up the inside, no, not quite. Derringer just closes the door once again. He has to brake mid-corner to try and slow the car down, but he's still in front. We see Livianos just get a little bit of grass there, but he's still there. Can he make a move into the toe? No, not quite. Interestingly, Derringer not going right to the inside, whereas Livianos is touching that apex curb, and in doing so he gets a little bit of oversteer. That's smart driving there from Derringer. He didn't touch the curb, he didn't get oversteer, and he just pulls that gap a little bit ahead. Very, very smart driving from both of these drivers.
Absolutely, and you can see the car in front of Derringer just driving like Adam Dutton doesn't even exist, or like Livianos doesn't even exist. And that's the right way to drive when you're in the heat of the moment, chasing or being chased like this, because the last thing you want to do is drive in your rear view mirror and leave the door open or leave a gap that doesn't need to be there and forcing an incident. Livianos looking for any small gap that does get cracked open. Derringer doing a great job of not leaving any opportunity to happen. Here at turn 1, the big 90, trying to come through neatly and tidily. Livianos not going over track limits this time around. He was trying to find some momentum into the bus stop chicane that previous lap by breaching track limits and carrying a bit more speed, but it didn't work out for him. Might work out for him this time around. Nose to tail, just 2/10 separating the two drivers. Will the BMW make a look on the inside line? This is the prime opportunity to do so. Takes a look up the inside line, but can't find the daylight to make a move stick. That Lamborghini just driving its own race right now and out of its skin. The lap times are nearly identical, 45.1 to 45.1.55. Absolutely identical laps between the two drivers. They're separated by nothing other than a piece of paper that you could slip between them coming into the bus stop chicane.
Yes, absolutely. We can see there, obviously, Livianos just trying to unsettle Derringer, just try to force him into a mistake, but Derringer, as steely-eyed as ever, is just not making a mistake. He is driving incredibly well, impeccably well. He arguably does not have as much speed as Livianos behind him, but he is holding on for his dear life, and so far, it's working. He's not put a foot wrong. Can he hold on for 18 more minutes? Perhaps we'll find out. But Livianos, yeah, he's looking left, right, centre. He'd be looking up and down if he could. If he could try and find a way to do a jump like in Fast and Furious, just jump over the top of the car, I'm sure he would try that. But at the moment, he just cannot find a way around that Lamborghini onto the pit straight. Once again, he's close this time, actually. He's very, very close. Come over the line. The gap is 0.3 of a second. Can he make a dive into turn 1? No, not quite close enough. So, round the first corner they go. Still using all of the curb. Can't blame him. Through the S's they come, and he's very close once again. But this is the issue. He's closing up towards the chicane. But to get a move into the chicane, it has to be so clear that you are alongside. It has to be absolutely intentional. It cannot be a last minute thing, and sure enough, he sticks behind him. He seems to be much more stable over these curbs at the moment, and we see once again he just gets right up the inside almost of the Lamborghini, but no, not quite, around the outer loop. Now we're going down towards the chute into the entrance to the boot. They are so nose to tail. He's looking left, right and centre. He's looking to the inside. He's looking to the outside. Where can he make a move? So far, there is no place. Derringer is putting his car exactly where it needs to be. And don't forget, this is the fight for the final place on the podium overall. Both of these drivers will be, as it stands, on the podium in their own respective categories. Derringer, wouldn't he just love to stick it and just go, look, not only did I win my race, but I got an overall podium, beating a lot of very, very fast pro drivers.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at an incident between the 777 of Giannis Mayer and the number 14 of Daniel Morris. Morris faced a stop-go 30 just a little while ago, presumably for speeding in the pit lane, and hopefully nothing else bequeaths him throughout his race. Here comes some side-by-side action coming in towards turn 13 in the BMW, and the number 14 just going side by side, and a little bit of touching and door banging there. One hip check, two hip checks, and side by side racing and single file line they go, and that'll be it for them. Back to the race action right now. The double four, excuse me, over the 13, nose to tail. This is as close as it's ever been, headed towards the bus stop chicane. 1/10 of a second of a gap right now. The BMW is going to have to peel out sooner rather than later, and there goes a look up the inside line. Let's go to a helicopter view to see if he's got any overlap. It doesn't look like it. Backs out at the entrance to the bus stop chicane, waiting for the Lamborghini to get a little discombobulated and make any sort of mistake, and the Lamborghini stays planted this time around through the inner loop. Into the outer loop we go, turn 9, and headed down in towards the chute. The 44 leads over the number 13 right now. I see the big 46 on the side. That's just the Skechers logo, brought to you by Valentino Rossi, as he was racing in WEC this year and doing a phenomenal job of bringing more MotoGP fans over to the WEC side and GT3 loving side of the sport. And you got to say, if you're not a Valentino Rossi fan, get out of the stream right now.
Yeah, I didn't start watching MotoGP until after his
Get out of the stream right now. Get out of the stream right now, Garrett Mogg.
I started watching right in the middle of Marc Marquez's absolute dominance, so I didn't unfortunately get to see him at his best. I have actually seen them in real life though when they were testing in Portimao. That was quite an experience. We sat and had a bit of food with Marc Marquez. He's a lovely guy, very, very lovely guy. But yeah, it's fantastic. Obviously, like you say, Valentino Rossi, he's just one of those guys that can just do a bit of everything. He has done phenomenally well in MotoGP. We've seen him do F1 tests and he was phenomenally quick, and we've seen him jump into the GT cars and he is again phenomenally quick. He brings fans over from each category. He proves that it can still be done in this day and age. The likes of John Surtees back in the 60s, that happened once, but it could happen again. It's not off the cards. But back to the here and the now. Livianos is back on the back of that Lamborghini, but he still cannot find a way around. He is taking every inch of that curb that he possibly can. But I think one of the issues that he's having by doing so is he is just taking a slightly tighter line into that outer loop, whereas Livianos is
now side by side coming through
line.
the chute.
But there we go, yes. And there we go. That is the mistake that Livianos has been trying to force for God knows how long now. He got the inside of the chute and he just made it stick. He pushed Derringer into a mistake going into that. He braked just a tad little bit too late, and that's all it takes. But Livianos is not out of the clear yet. Derringer is right behind him, and a little bit of a wiggle coming out there. See, this is what we mean. It is not over yet. Those tyres are starting to wear. Livianos is starting to feel the pressure now that Derringer has been under for however long they've been battling, and coming down into the start-finish race, we've seen this Lamborghini is good on the brakes. He is good on the exit. It is not over yet. The gap is still quite close, but Livianos just takes that final sector and he absolutely runs over. Let's see the time over the line. What is the gap between them? It is half a second. He has taken 2.5 tenths out of Derringer in that last sector. That is exactly what he needs to do, because you can see there that Derringer just takes that extra bit of braking into turn 1. He gets a little bit closer, but he's just not quite close enough. And finally, Livianos finds a way around that unstoppable, that seemingly million-mile wide Lamborghini.
Don't move, done and dusted finally. Here comes Massey chasing down Zawada. This is a battle not for position in class, but just for positions overall, aka bragging rights. The 69 chasing down the 413. Massey not having a great race start and then falling back, taking an early pit stop for 110 seconds after a ton of damage. Side by side into the bus stop chicane, leads the 413, absolutely just robs him of that position, and he zooms right on by the 69 over the 413 of Zawada.
That was absolutely incredible. You know what it reminds me of? Do you remember Raikkonen? Was it 2003 in Suzuka? And he just goes round the outside of turn 1, just seemingly just stealing that place. I think it was Fischer Keller was currently in the lead, and Raikkonen just drove around the outside. It looked like they crashed, but no, not quite. That was exactly what it reminded me of. Fox in that McLaren just took to the outside and just went, right, I'm having this, goodbye, and just drove right the way around. That was absolutely incredible driving, knowing exactly where your opponent is, exactly where to position the car, exactly how much brake to use. That is fantastic piece of driving.
100%. And knowing exactly where your car needs to be at the exact given moment, making sure that you have that overlap non-existent anymore before you move over to the racing line, prevents you from getting involved into any incidences. Amazing driving and a good racecraft after an incident that faced him earlier on, and great heads up driving to not give up on your race so far, Mr. Massey. Well done to you, to keeping your composure and just trying to get back into the points, whatever it took, and you're driving to your heart's content right now. And the next up is going to be Ozduru, and he is in 14th position. Massey has 34 and a half seconds to make up. Might not be enough time in this race to make it up, but I'm sure he'll get some more points in the next race. That's for certain.
Yeah, definitely. We saw Massey last week. He was unbelievable. Unfortunately, his race ended with an interesting collision, which I don't know if you've seen, but it was we debated it for quite a while, even after the stream ended, just trying to work out exactly what had happened and exactly sort of what had caused the incident. But yeah, Massey is a very, very fast driver. Unfortunately, obviously, just didn't have the start that he would have wanted to have so far in this race. And yeah, we'll see. Obviously, next week he should be back on it. But yeah, so coming round obviously the into the boot now, you see that everyone is just kind of getting to that stage now where the tires are almost see one of the McLarens there just drives wide.
I think that's Zawada in the 413 dipping out of the way. He is one lap down on Irwinish in P9 right now, so I think he was just dipping out of the way, making sure that he was free and clear. But here's an incident from Carl Warburton, and that was uncharacteristic of him, and Nick Neville drove right on by the two AMR Vantages, going 10th and 11th right now. Warburton now into 11th position behind the 888 of Nick Neville, and that must have been a mistake for the Spider-Man car, the War Spider vehicle, excuse me. And that thing, like we said earlier, has definitely been to war and back, and it's got its bullet holes scattered all over that thing. Those aren't spider webs anymore. Those are going to be bullet holes in that Aston Martin.
I would make a joke and say, well, we are in America, but I will probably... well,
wow! Wow! Low blow. That was below the belt, Fred.
Well, never mind. It's been said now. It's been said.
Classy as ever. Derringer now 8/10 away from Livianos, though. This battle, like you said, has continued to rage on. Derringer hasn't quite given up on his podium chances, has he?
No, can you blame him? I mean, that BMW is right in front of him. He's roughly the same pace. Why not? I mean, he's leading his race at the moment, and this is one thing that he's got to think about. He's leading his race. The points he will get will be the same as what Jordan's getting at the front of the grid. But he doesn't want to risk that, because Newtling's in that Bentley is, what is he? Oh, he's actually quite a big gap behind. But if he has a collision, if he messes it up, he's not safe yet. And that's what he needs to really think about. If he's going to mount an attack at Livianos, he needs to make sure that it is 100% instant free. It cannot be half-hearted. He needs to make sure that he's alongside Livianos. You cannot turn in. He needs to make sure it is clean. It is a clean move, and he's right behind him once again, but I don't think he's quite close enough to make a dive into the chicane. But he is getting very, very close here. He starts to look to the inside, but he thinks twice. No, that's exactly what he needed to do there. That gap was always going to close. He was going into that triangle. He needed to think about his own race there, and he did. That, as I will say again, Mike, that is the driving of a pro driver, not a pro-am driver. But not that I'm trying to get him. Not I'm trying to get him. Yeah, you know what I'm trying to say. You know what I'm trying to say. But yes, so he's doing very, very well at the moment, and he's driving well outside of his category. It's very, very impressive driving so far that we've seen from Derringer. So yeah, he needs to make sure if he's going to mount an attack, it is clean, because he cannot risk that first place finish in the Pro-Am category.
As you said, he's probably got at least a 14, almost 16-second gap back to Nuttenlings, and he's had some help from this BMW to push him forward. A little bit of NASCAR shaking and baking going down, but this Lamborghini is doing a great job keeping in touch with the pro drivers out in front. Like you said about the points as well, he will be facing a nice haul and heap of points. Nick Neville going a little bit slow, and Daniel Morris now catching up after that stop-go 30 that he had, and he can find himself into the top 3 potentially behind Mr. Fox, Jim Fox. Here comes the number 14 trying to find his way around the 888, looks to the right, looks to the left, trying to go the long way around at the toe. He's not into the camber section of the corner. Can he hold on? He's on the throttle very well, gets a little bit of oversteer. The car wiggles out from underneath him, but makes the move stick on the 888 Porsche. The Porsche just does not have the legs to keep up. A little bit of wiggling there from that 888, and out in front, that 14 has already pulled out a half-second gap right now, and it keeps on pulling away. Daniel Morris doing a great job. Derringer and Liviano's having an incident going into the bus stop chicane. Let's see if we can get a 10 for 10 and go back and watch this one very quickly. Coming in the bus stop chicane.
Remember what we were talking about before the stream went live? Around the outside, it's the first Slim Shady of the race. That was incredible driving between the two of them. Right around the outside, he just kept the momentum up. It was very, very impressive.
Yeah, very good driving between the two of them, and very good driving around the outside. Like you said, that first Slim Shady of the race, that was definitely the way to get it done. It almost like he was standing still, and it looked like Derringer and Livianos, both of them getting the bus stop chicane a little bit wrong there, and both of them going a little bit off into the S's, as it were, and slowing down a considerable amount. But now the gap is just 2/10 separating the two of them, and I think the 44 is still cooking that overtake. The 44 has made that overtake happen. Well done and dusted. And Michael Tabika.
Yes, absolutely. The chat is going off at the moment. Mikhail Topinka just says, I think 44 is still cooking that overtake. And then he goes, I said let him cook. Well, he's only got 4 and a bit minutes left to cook. So if he's going to make the move, it needs to be soon. And like we say, it needs to be decisive and clean. That is the issue. Watkins Glen, it doesn't have a ton of really heavy braking zones. You've got turn 1. The chicane kind of helps slow down for the outer loop, and then you got some of the boot stuff, but because of the camber, you take much more speed through that. So realistically, if you're talking about braking zones, you're talking turn 1, and that's really where his advantages have been looking. So it needs to be decisive, and to be honest, I think at this point it needs to be creative.
And Adam Dutton into the pits now. Not sure what that's for. I'll have to keep an eye on the timing tower to see if that was for a penalty of sorts. But the 812 now out of the way from Jim Fox. Jim Fox has a 9-second gap to Nuttenlings out in front in that 666. That was an earlier battle that we were keeping an eye on for quite some time. Jim Fox going a little bit slowly in that number 80. He's being chased down by the 111 and the number 14 closely behind him. But they are both in a battle of their own right now, as it were. But here's Derringer and Liviano still in their nose-to-tail battle. Derringer, just phenomenal drive. I would want to vote for driver of the day out of him as well, for driving so much out of his skin and out of his place in his category. He's pulling off a phenomenal win. Tony Rucroft is off at the outer loop, it looks like, and he is slow, and yellow flags being waved there, and he's about to get passed by the 41 and the 14. Both of them are on lead laps, so no positions lost for Tony Rucroft just yet.
Indeed, we've got Mike now is currently talking in the chat. I think Michael is going to chill. I think what you were saying about him being driver of the day is absolutely 100% correct. I would back you all of the way on that. I think he has probably done the most impressive job this race. There's been a lot of impressive driving in this race, but I think if I had to pick one, it would be the 44 of the Lamborghini that we're currently looking at on screen, because yeah, he's been driving outside of his class. He has been driving a almost flawless race, barring one tiny mistake in the entrance to the boot. As we saw, it was just one little slight braking too late, but other than that, he's been absolutely flawless. And I can see Rev Up is also in the chat having an input into this battle as well. I had experience with him too. If there's a gap, he'd go for it, cleanly go for it, but still going. So if that's the case, he's got 1 minute and 30 seconds left to attempt to go for it. But like we were saying, he cannot do it half-heartedly. It has got to be so decisive. And I think that is part of the reason he hasn't already gone for it. He doesn't want to risk that lead battle, but he really wants that podium finish.
Leader is on the final lap now. Hopefully these drivers, at least for my sake, in the excitement of this, can catch up to the number 24 out in front, and that'll be David Llanos, because I believe lap traffic giveth, lap traffic taketh away. And Dutton now with a drive-through penalty seemingly for speeding in the pit lanes that he just served. And that's the 812, and hopefully we'll see some more excitement coming through. Matt Jordan involved with a little bit of an incident there, getting a yellow flag waved. Now 3.4 seconds back to Verbu, but lap traffic giveth, lap traffic taketh away. And again, the leader is still 3 seconds ahead right now, and the number 6 of Gio Verbu still has to go through that same amount of traffic. You can see them coming through the inner loop through the outer loop right now, and in through the chute. There's just a gaggle of cars. The 22 leads over the number 1, the number 6, and the 812.
Yes, indeed. But yeah, it's been an amazing race all around, and we should definitely obviously take a moment just to for each of the 3 current leaders, Matt Jordan, Derringer, and of course Ioannis as well, in each of the 3 categories, as we see Carl Warburton just making a move up the inside of the McLaren there. What is that?
Ioannis Mayer.
Been overtaken, sorry. Yeah, so I was looking at Ioannis has come through. I told you, keep an eye on Ioannis because he will find a way through.
Oh no!
Mark Newtlings. Oh my God!
That's a big incident for Newtonlings, and Jim Fox finds himself a podium position. He makes his way through as Newtonlings has a big incident, and it looks like the leader has finished the race. Coming across the line in P1 is Matt Jordan, Verbu in P2. The drivers sharing a little bit of camaraderie as they cross the line together and do a little bit of their cool-down lap, collecting those marbles. The battle for P3 is over. Ioannis Livanos taking the lead of this one, but look at this gaggle of cars. Hold on, it's not over yet. The Lamborghini trying to get a run to the line. 2 tenths, 1 tenth separating them. What a finish for P3 and P4 at the end of the day. I thought it was said and done, but no, it was absolutely not. The 44 gave it everything he could coming out of turn 15. The number 12 crosses the line in 5th place. That's Henneberry. Jim Fox finds himself a podium position at the very end of this race and climbs up into P2 now, and crosses the line in 6th place overall. Alex Uranis will cross the line in the 111 in 7th place. Mark Nuttenlings having an incident on the very last lap going into the bus stop chicane. The 666 will cross the line in 8th place.
That was absolutely insane. This is what happens. It's an hour-long race, but one thing you cannot predict is the traffic. Right at the exit there was like 3-4 cars right in the way. Livianos tried to go for the outside, but that gap quickly closed. He had to then swing back over to the inside of the track, and Derringer, I think, saw that was going to happen. He took a slightly later apex, meaning he didn't have to use quite as much of the track on the exit. He got a better run, and yeah, as we saw, a tenth separating them at the end of the race there. It was fantastic reading by both drivers, fantastic reading in particular by Derringer, but what an amazing race from all involved. It has been, yeah, I would argue that's probably the most exciting race we've had of the season so far.
Absolutely. Let's take a quick look at the starting video one more time, and we'll wrap this one up to finish off this event.
HSR Motorsport.
Matt Jordan leads the charge in P1 over Gio Verbeau, and then Ivanos, Derringer, Henneberry, Jim Fox, Urwinish, Nuttenlings, Morris, Neville, and Mayer. There is your top 11, excuse me, not just your top 10. I gave you more than you bargained for. And the standings are for P1, P2, and P3, Jordan, Verbeau, Olivia, Livanos, and then Derringer in P1 in his category, Fox in P2, Nuttlings in P3, Urwanish in P1 for the amateurs, and Ozduru in P2, and Zawada in P3 for the amateurs. Great driving, everybody, here at the Watkins Glen circuit. Name your moment of the race for us. Karen, are you still there? Karen Mogg? I seem to have lost my co-commentator, Kieran Mogg.
I'm back. There
And
we go.
he's
I'm
back.
That was. I was trying to load up the screen so I could see the standings, but we had this issue before the stream started as well, and my microphone muted. But for some reason, right. Moment of the race. That is a very tricky one, but I would possibly say, I don't know. Possibly when, honestly, I think the finish. Actually, no, yeah, I've decided the finish. The finish was staggering. There was a lot of exciting things that were happening, but throughout the race. But I think that finish just kind of topped off the cherry on a, quite frankly, incredible cake. How about yourself?
I would have to say the finish as well was my favorite moment of the race. It was absolutely phenomenal to watch them finish out the race like that, just battling out tooth and nail, 60 minutes long, and then to push that little bit harder at the very end, just when you think everybody's got their fuel tanks dry, not only in their cars, but emotionally and physically. To be able to see them drive at home has been an absolutely fantastic event, and it's been a pleasure to commentate with you, Kieran Mogg. Thank you so much for having me here for the HSR Motorsports team. I've been really having a great time, and I think this is going to wrap it up for us. Any final words for us, sir, before we sign off?
Well, if I could have a camera, I'd just applause. I think just clap my hands and just say, well done for putting on a show that has been absolutely incredible. It was fantastic to commentate alongside yourself as well. It's fantastic to call the action on the racing that we've seen tonight, and I cannot wait to see what is going to happen, I should say, for the remainder of the season, because it is all hotting up now. The drivers are really starting to find their positions in the championship, find who their main rivals are, and we're seeing the fantastic racing that's happening. I can't wait for next week. And next week, we've got one of my absolute favourite tracks in the world. It's Kyalami. I cannot wait to see how the drivers will fare with that, quite frankly, very, very difficult track.
100%. Kyalami, meaning our home in Swahili. It is definitely our home for racing in South Africa. One of my favorite tracks as well. It is a wonderful place to go to, and I cannot wait to see it in person one of these days. But enjoy the last 3 races of the season, everybody. It's been my pleasure. Sagar Bakshi. Joined with me is Kieran Mogg. Thank you very much for having us here at HSR Motorsport. It's been my pleasure and an honor to serve you guys. Thank you so much for all the love in chat. You guys have really been entertaining us all race long, and thank you very much to the drivers for putting on a wonderful show. And as always, have a wonderful night and evening, and as always, please remember to stay safe out there. Take care and goodbye.